All right, let's dive in. Today we're journeying back to ancient Rome, into the world of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar.
But we're not just doing a simple plot recap. We're going deeper.
Much deeper.
We're examining Caesar's ambition, the thing that, made him powerful, but also took him down in the end.
It's amazing how Shakespeare takes this historical figure and makes him into like this exploration of these huge, like universal themes: power, loyalty, fate.
Right, the human condition, all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're using an academic analysis of the play so we can go beyond just the surface.
Right, really get into the complexities of Caesar.
Exactly. The nitty gritty.
So not just ambition like in general, but how it played out in Caesar's specific actions and choices, and of course, his ultimate fate.
Yeah, the consequences.
So at the start of the play, our sources paint this picture of Caesar as like this super successful guy, celebrated general, powerful dictator, loved by the people, just won a civil war. You'd think he'd be on top of the world.
You think so, right? But even with all that success, the political scene in Rome was, well, pretty shaky.
Yeah, definitely not a peaceful time.
Not at all. And the source material goes into how the Roman Republic worked, with the Senate and all that.
Yeah, the Senate was supposed to, keep things balanced.
Right, make sure no one person got too strong.
Yeah.
And they were getting more and more worried about Caesar's power.
He's super suspicious of him.
Oh, absolutely. Watching his every move, worried he was going to get rid of the Republic and just, declare himself king.
Yeah, they saw that coming a mile away. But Caesar himself, he doesn't seem too bothered by all this, does he?
Nope.
There's this one quote from Caesar where he compares himself to the North Star.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
He says he's constant as the northern star, of whose true fixed and resting quality there is no fellow in the firmament. Like, whoa!
Talk about confident.
Right. It's like he's totally sure of himself. He thinks he's essential, the only one who can lead Rome.
He definitely believes in his own destiny. But, that kind of unshakable confidence can be a double-edged sword.
That's what our source calls out, right? They say his fatal flaw was his hubris.
His hubris.
So what exactly is that, and how did it play out with Caesar?
Hubris is like extreme pride, arrogance. It's that thing that makes you blind to, your own weaknesses. And you don't see the consequences coming.
So basically it makes you make bad decisions.
Basically, yeah. And the source points out a bunch of times where Caesar's hubris made him ignore some pretty clear warnings. Like, remember the soothsayer?
Oh, yeah. Beware the Ides of March.
Exactly. Caesar just dismisses it like it's nothing.
And then there are Calpurnia's dreams. Even his own wife is having these really bad dreams that seem to be about him getting assassinated. But Caesar, he's so sure of himself, he just ignores them too.
He just can't fathom that anyone would dare to try to kill him.
It makes you wonder if he'd been less Caesar, less arrogant, if he'd actually listened to the people around him, could he have avoided it all?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's been debated for centuries. But, Shakespeare's pretty clever. He doesn't just show Caesar as this totally arrogant, power-hungry guy.
How interesting. So there's more to it.
Yeah, there are moments where we see a more human side. Like, at first, Caesar actually hesitates about going to the Senate on the Ides of March.
Really?
Yeah, he's actually swayed by Calpurnia's fears. He shows a little vulnerability.
Huh. So maybe he wasn't completely oblivious to the danger.
Maybe not. But something pushed him to ignore those warnings and walk right into the trap.
So what was it?
Well, the source highlights a quote from Decius Brutus, one of the guys plotting against Caesar. He basically manipulates Caesar by, appealing to his pride.
Oh, sneaky. How so?
He tells Caesar that the senators are going to offer him a crown. And if Caesar doesn't show up, they'll think he's scared.
Ah, I see. Playing him right where it hurts.
Exactly. Caesar can't stand the thought of appearing weak. So his pride basically leads him to his death.
Wow. So they used his own ambition against him. But, the conspirators, they had their own reasons for wanting Caesar gone, right?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't just about personal stuff. They really thought they were doing the right thing for Rome.
Saving the Republic.
Exactly. The source points out this key quote from Cassius where he says, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings."
Interesting.
He's basically saying it's their own fault for letting Caesar become so powerful. They see his ambition as this direct threat to, their own position and the whole idea of the Republic.
So it was more about principles than, jealousy?
I think so. They truly believe they had to get rid of Caesar for the good of Rome.
Which brings up another big question. Was killing Caesar, a man so many people loved, actually the right thing to do?
That's one Shakespeare leaves for us to figure out. He doesn't give any easy answers. He makes us consider all sides.
So even early in the play, we can see that Caesar's ambition isn't just this one thing. It's all tangled up with everyone else's ambitions and fears.
Yeah, it's like this web of like relationships and power struggles.
A recipe for disaster.
And that all leads up to, one of the most famous scenes ever. The assassination of Julius Caesar on the Ides of March. The Ides of March, a day that like changed everything.
It's a turning point in the play for sure. And in Roman history too, right?
Absolutely. The source material talks about how this date, it really marks the end of the Roman Republic.
Wow.
And the way Shakespeare writes that assassination scene, it's intense.
It's brutal.
Yeah, and so symbolic. It shows just how high the stakes were.
You can just feel the tension in that Senate chamber. Caesar's surrounded by all these men, and he thinks they're his friends.
Is he his allies?
Then suddenly, bam, daggers everywhere. It's like not just a political killing. It feels more like
Like a ritual.
Yeah, a sacrifice almost.
The source material really points out how Shakespeare makes that scene super dramatic. The way the conspirators surround Caesar, each one taking their turn to stab him. It's meant to emphasize the betrayal, how quickly the power shifted.
And then there's that famous line from Caesar, "Et tu, Brute."
Chilling.
Right, like the ultimate betrayal, coming from the guy he thought was his closest friend. That moment, it's like everything just freezes. What do you think about Caesar's reaction in that final moment?
It's interesting. You see this like wave of emotions on his face, shock, disbelief, anger, and then maybe a little bit of acceptance, like he finally sees what's happening.
That's what I was thinking too, like in that last then fall Caesar, it's almost like he's resigned to his fate.
Yeah, like he's finally realizing too late what his ambition has cost him, that all that power he had, it wasn't so secure after all.
Tragic. But the story doesn't end there, obviously. The source material makes it clear that the play really focuses on what happens after Caesar's death.
Oh, definitely. The assassination isn't the end, it's just the beginning.
Right, it sets off this whole chain of events.
Chaos, civil war, and in the end, the Roman Republic is destroyed.
And the Roman Empire rises.
Exactly. So the irony is, the thing they did to save the Republic actually leads to its downfall.
It really makes you think about unintended consequences, huh? Like, even when people try to do good, things can go so wrong.
Absolutely. And the play shows all the damage, people dying, more violence, the cost of that political turmoil.
We see Brutus and Cassius too, right? Driven by the same ambition they tried to stop in Caesar, and it ends up destroying them.
Yeah, it's almost like Shakespeare showing us that ambition itself can be this destructive force no matter who has it. What do you think?
I don't know. It's complicated. Like, we all have ambitions, right?
Of course.
It's part of what drives us. But I guess Shakespeare's warning us not to let it take over, not to let it become the only thing that matters.
Right. There has to be a balance.
Yeah.
I think he's also saying something about leadership, that it's not just about having power. It's about using that power for something bigger than yourself.
Serving something greater.
Exactly. Like thinking about the good of everyone, the whole society.
That makes sense. It's about finding that balance between what you want and what's best for everyone.
And that's tough. It's a challenge we all face, right? Whether we're leading a country, a company, or even just like our own families.
So true. But what I think is really cool about Julius Caesar is how it makes you think about these things. It's not just about ancient Rome, it's about us too.
Oh, totally. It's like Shakespeare's holding up a mirror to our own struggles with power and ambition and how we make choices.
And it raises some serious questions.
Like, how do we deal with our own ambition? How do we know when it's too much?
How do we make sure it doesn't destroy us?
Or destroy the things we care about?
That's what makes Julius Caesar so relevant even now.
Absolutely. And Shakespeare doesn't just point fingers. He shows us all sides of the story. He makes us think.
He makes us question our own assumptions.
Right. About ambition, about power, about what it means to be a good leader, and about the masks we all wear.
The masks?
Yeah, like Caesar. He projected this image of being strong and invincible. But we also see moments where he's, not so confident. He has doubts, fears, like everyone else.
Like he's putting on a show.
Exactly. And it makes you think about authenticity, How much of what we see in leaders is real and how much is just for show?
That's a great point. It's like image management isn't a new thing. They were dealing with it even back in ancient Rome.
Totally. And I think the play is reminding us that even the most powerful people are still human. They have weaknesses, just like us.
So, as we move into the last part of our deep dive, I think it's important to consider this. What happened because of Caesar's ambition? What are the consequences that lasted, that shaped the future of Rome? And what can we learn from all of this?
Okay, so we've talked about Caesar's rise to power and how his ambition, may have gotten the best of him. And, of course, we can't forget that shocking assassination. But now I'm thinking, what about everything that came after? What happened in Rome because of all this?
Well, one thing the source really points out is that the assassination, it didn't really work out the way those conspirators planned. It's like they thought they were saving the Republic, right?
Yeah, I thought they were the heroes.
Exactly. But instead of things getting better, Rome just kind of fell apart.
It's like the opposite of what they wanted happened.
Totally. Shakespeare shows how after Caesar's gone, everyone just starts fighting for power. Different groups trying to take control. And all that chaos, well, it basically leads to the end of the Republic for good. And the Roman Empire is born. It's like Caesar's ambition, even though he's dead, it still ends up changing everything.
Yeah, it's almost like this this ripple effect, The consequences just keep spreading out.
Makes you think about how even when people have good intentions, things can go so wrong.
Absolutely. And, the play doesn't sugarcoat anything. We see the consequences for everyone. Like Brutus and Cassius, they end up dying too, consumed by that same ambition they were trying to stop.
It's like a warning, almost.
Yeah, like Shakespeare saying, hey, be careful with this ambition stuff. It could be dangerous, no matter who you are.
So Julius Caesar it's more than just a history play then.
Oh, for sure. It's like this cautionary tale, about power, ambition, how easily things can fall apart.
And those themes, they're still relevant, even now.
Totally. I mean, think about it. How do we deal with our own ambition? How do we know when it's too much? How do we make sure it doesn't, ruin us or the people around us?
It's like a constant balancing act, right?
Right. And that's what I love about Shakespeare. He doesn't give us easy answers. He just makes us think, makes us ask the tough questions.
And Julius Caesar really makes you question things, like what makes a good leader? What's the difference between healthy ambition and, the kind that takes over your life?
It definitely challenges your assumptions.
Exactly. And it reminds us that even the most powerful people, they're still human. They have flaws. They make mistakes.
No one's perfect.
Right. So I guess at the end of the day, Julius Caesar is this story that, well, it's stuck with people for centuries, and it makes us look at ourselves, think about our own choices, our own ambitions.
It's a story that keeps giving.
Definitely. So for everyone listening, here's something to think about. Is ambition always a bad thing? Or can it be a force for good? How can we use it in a way that helps us build a better future?
Those are some big questions.
They are. But I think they're worth asking. And I think Shakespeare would be happy to know that all these years later, his work is still making people think.
I think so, too.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Julius Caesar. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep asking those big questions. I may